All right, so what are we going to be talking about right now? We're talking about the single market. Why? Earlier this morning, we were saying that it's great that the Commission and the officials are looking across the world and looking at the regions that we have to compete to. But really, when you look at resilience and when you look at the success of the EU, it comes down to really one thing that is our power and our engine, and that is the single market. And there is far too many barriers within the single market that is preventing Europe from getting the opportunities it needs and to hit its targets. And I'll give you some examples. If you look at what it wants to do in the Green Deal, right, and there needs to be requirements that the industry have to comply to. But if industry has to comply to different requirements in every single member state, guess what happens? You have companies that have to shut down processes, rejig the logistics, put different labels on different products to send to different markets. That's not going to work. It's going to slow things down, it makes things burdensome, it makes things costly. So we're going to be drilling down on these different barriers. And I also want to ask everyone, please, come to our website, look at the single market barriers, and you will see a letter that we did with Business Europe, with Eurocommerce, with Eurochambers, with ERT, letters that provide very explicit recommendations that we want and we need on all future regulations. And one of them very much is, look at the regulations, and if it's going to cause fragmentation, don't do it. Remove all that lines within that regulation to make sure you're not creating more fragmentation. So I'm going to shut up because I want to have the experts here to talk about it today. And we're very lucky because we have a representation from all the three most important stakeholders on this topic. So we have today with us, we have James Waterworth. Hello, James. I know James for a long time, and you're leading Amazon's business across the EU. We also have Andreas Schwab. Thank you very much for being here. And Andreas, of course, everyone knows, that works in the European Parliament. And then we have from DG GROW, Amaryllis, that is with us today as well, who's in the unit, the best named unit in all of the Commission, which is Digital Transformation, which also happens to be my title, so that's great. And we're going to be going through each one, but I'd like to start with you, James. So, we look at Amazon, and we just think, okay, big global company. You probably don't have any problems with the single market barriers, right? You can just roll out super easy across the EU, is that correct?
If only life was that easy. Thank you, Ray, and thanks to Digital Europe for putting on this show and for bothering to remember the 30th anniversary of the single market, because I know Amaryllis remembers it well and the colleagues in DG GROW do, but some people don't give it the love I think that it deserves. I know the Internal Market Committee does, but sometimes it gets taken for granted. Quick couple of data points. Single market, 30 years young, just getting going. Amazon in Europe, 25 years young, hopefully just getting going. We have, someone gave me a brilliant new A to Z today. We have offices from Amsterdam to Zagreb. I don't know if we make every letter of the alphabet in between, but our presence is across the EU. We've got about 200,000 employees in the EU. And what I'm going to talk about mostly is actually what's not a problem for us, big company, we have lawyers. Quite differently is that if you buy something from Amazon, more than half of the stuff you buy may be sent by us, but it's not sold by us. It's sold by a small business, in the majority of cases, a European small business, which is sending that to you here in Belgium from their home in Germany, from their home in Portugal, from their home in Croatia, wherever it happens to be. So the single market matters to them hugely because they don't have an army of lawyers and compliance budgets. I don't know how many people here are gardeners. Is there anyone who's going to put their hand up and say in a digital crowd, go on, gardener?
It's like 0.5% from here.
I think we're definitely, maybe 3-4%. Not that many. I make the analogy partly to tease you, because you're all digital policy experts, but also because I'm a gardener, and the single market strikes me, is it true, Amaryllis? It's like having a garden. You plant it, and you try to keep the weeds away, but the weeds come back, and then a plant dies, and you've got to plant a new one. And so it requires constant love and attention. It's never done. The seasons change, the political seasons change. So it requires our constant attention, which is one of the reasons we're so pleased to talk about it. So I mentioned our interest is primarily because we get paid a commission when a small business sells a package to any of you here or any of our customers in Europe, and often across a border, and they want it to be easy. So your question was, is it easy today? Well, sometimes. Thank God it's there. Businesses like ours and small businesses have flourished because of it, but there's still plenty of work to do. I'm going to point at a few things. First of all, it creates scale. So the single market creates scale. We are now, Amazon is the world's largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy and Europe's largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy. Scale matters in the green transition, whether it's for renewable energy purchasing, whether it's for shipping boxes across borders. And I think we should also not ignore the scale, the investment case that comes with that transformation. A few specific issues that still need to be done. We were talking about digital labeling before. It might seem quite niche, but there's a lot of paper that is produced to go into a lot of boxes, which gets sent to a lot of people with instruction manuals or with language manuals. And clearly there's both a sustainability opportunity, a language opportunity, but also a digital opportunity there. So plenty of work still to do. I think I might get more chance to talk a little bit more about the future, but I'll stop there and give you a sense of work part done, plenty more to do.
No, James, that's important. And, you know, also, good luck if you want to be a business to trade across the EU, because you have to register in every member state and set up and all that, and that is very difficult. So let me go to the Parliament then. And, you know, I know, Andreas, that you know, the Parliament, it's not its role to create laws, right? But what can it do? What can this, you know, this reverent body do to try and help solve this single market, you know, barrier issue?
Well, I mean, you're asking me a very boring question, and I think
right.
people are so amazed about artificial intelligence that was just discussed before, and now we are speaking about human intelligence, and so we are limited. We are in a limited area, and therefore I kindly ask you to accept that. But I mean, this human intelligence has brought us to the most advantageous economic situation that we have ever had in Europe. But as we are not artificial but human, we are too lazy, because the wealth that has been created in Europe is so high, in Belgium, in Germany. I also care about Switzerland. It's the worst case there. They are fed up, the people. They don't want to change anymore, even if you can improve growth and economic activity. So what is the argument for us to change rules if people are so well off without changing them? And that's a bit the problem. So today, and that's a brand new topic, today we had the vote on the Corporate Social Due Diligence Directive, CSDDD, and we have said as EPP, as European People's Party, there is a precondition for our rules to change the world. We have to have only one. Because if you have 27 in Africa and in Russia and in China and all of those, no one will care. So we said this is the precondition for that vote that we do. Either we get it fully harmonized or we will vote against. And we have voted against. And now it's human intelligence. The colleagues that have done that wanted to have a majority without full harmonization, they know that in member states, and we have 27, it's sometimes difficult to change the rules. In addition, if there is no political guidance, for example, of a very strong commissioner, be it a man or a woman, then it's even more difficult, because the Parliament will get the proposals from the Commission. Even if we are asking for them, sometimes we have to wait for 6 years. And therefore, this garden that James has been making a reference to, at the moment is a bit better, because we have the DMA and the DSA. So for digital, we did a lot, and we have always fully harmonized that, at least largely on the Digital Services Act. But in other areas of that garden, there is still a lot of green trees that should be cut. I know that with the Green Deal is not a nice topic, but there has to be a lot of cuttings to make things easier, to make growth a chance. And the fact that we are losing population, losing workforce, makes it even stronger a need for us to fight for that. Because, for example, the Japanese have told us when we were there with Brando, who has just been speaking before, they have said, we want to use artificial intelligence to replace those people that go out of the working process, and we cannot replace them. So for Europe, there will be the same challenge. But if we wake up too late, then it's too late. So we have to discuss about that, and we have to take the conclusions, and therefore more full harmonization is needed. But we need member states authorities to cooperate with that, and that is a difficult issue to achieve.
But Andreas, let me ask you something, and I'm going a little bit off script if you don't mind. But you know, we always talk about, I've been in this game too long, maybe 30 years, and it's always like we need more money, we need less requirements, but never before am I hearing we need full harmonization. We need, this has got to be the focus. Are you also hearing this the same? Is this something that's being asked for in countries like Germany, that companies and all stakeholders are asking for let's rip down these barriers?
Well, I mean, we should also ask Amaryllis this, because in the council there is probably a different debate. I was doing a stage in France in 1995 in the Ministry of Justice, and they have sent me to the European Affairs Unit, Service des Affaires Européennes et Internationales. Very nice, and I was really amazed. And after some time, I discovered that these people are probably the most anti-European of the whole ministry, because they have been justifying their existence by fighting against Brussels, taking away competences from France, all the other parts of the ministry. And this is the same all over Europe, also in Germany, I don't know for Belgium, but in other member states as well. So the problem is that we have to overcome that structural resistance, because if you go for full harmonization, for example, in customs, at the moment, you have 27 directors of customs in every member state, 27 secretaries of the directors of customs, 27 drivers, 27 cars, 27 services. And if you tell them we don't need you anymore, we have only one anymore, they say, no, I want to stay. For me, it's still okay. When I go to my pension, then okay, we can give it up, but before, no. So there is an issue there. This is not funny. This is very difficult, and politically, we have to overcome that resistance, and that's not easy. But I have to tell you also, when I started in 2004, there was no discussion about full harmonization. People wanted to avoid that. On the DMA, we did it. On the DSA, we did it. In other areas, we are doing it as well. So the things have been getting better, and therefore, I think there is reason for optimism. But we need more pressure from you and your guys from the digital economy.
Well, thank you, Andreas. And so let me come to you, Amaryllis. And I'm very happy that you're here, and ready to take such abuse. But, all the regions across the world are preparing teams to, again, land on the moon. And Europe's biggest struggle now is, can we have full harmonization? So what is the Commission doing to address this?
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ray, and good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I like very much a comparison with a garden. I think, indeed, that the single market is something that requires a lot of attention and relentless attention. We are basically never there, right? Now, on the challenges that we see today and how to address them, you raised already the question of the level playing field. Indeed, if you look at what the single market can bring, it's really the level playing field that is being created. We are the biggest market in the world, one of the biggest markets in the world. If we get it right, if we have level playing field conditions for our industries across the board, combined with high quality standards, high consumer protection standards, high safety standards everywhere, then we have a very big competitive advantage throughout in the world. And I think the facts and figures, and I refer here to the single market communication that was recently published, show that. Now, how to get there? You mentioned Commission come up with full harmonization proposals. I know there are still exceptions, but I have the feeling that as a Commission, we do that more and more in also more and more areas, wherever we think that is politically feasible. And it's not only about full harmonization, it's also choosing regulations over directives where we can, because the directive still needs to be transposed, and there is always the risk of gold plating, something that we want to see avoided. Are we successful throughout the negotiations? Well, I hear a passionate plea for full harmonization, but my humble reality is that I'm sitting in a lot of council working parties as well, and there I very often hear member states saying, yeah, but I should, from my perspective, I need a derogation here, and I need a right to go beyond there, and I can agree if I can be different. And there it starts again. Very difficult to beat that. If all member states agree on the right to be different, although they want to be different on other aspects, your level playing field is being broken. And that is a mantra that we need to keep on repeating. Now, let me reassure you, it's not all doom and gloom in Europe. We have been doing quite some analysis in the run-up to the 30 years of the single market, and guess what? When it comes to regulatory coherence, level playing field, we're actually better than the United States overall. That's what academics tell us. So it's not true that only in Europe barriers persist. Now, I'm not saying that in order to say, oh, we're good, let's rest on our laurels and go home. No, but I think it is work in progress and work that we need to continue. But on full harmonization, everybody needs to take on their responsibility. What do we do from the Commission? I mean, as you know, we just introduced, it all starts, good legislation with good impact assessments. We just introduced now a competitiveness test, building, of course, on a single market test that has been introduced. And this is looking at the effect of a proposal on competitiveness, internal competitiveness, external competitiveness, in particular for SMEs and for innovation. And I think that this is a powerful tool, if we apply it well, to really assess and to come already to the right conclusions and to drive them through also during the legislative process, because that's what we want to do. Then, second, remaining barriers. Yes, there are remaining barriers. But again, this is a shared responsibility. Yeah? A lot of the barriers that are remaining are barriers which are basically existing at the member state level and don't come from legislation. They come from administrative practices. They come from all kinds of things. We've seen, for instance, that permitting is a big issue. You can have a wonderful level playing field. If it takes a year or more, or maybe years, in order to get a permit, and you need to knock on all kinds of different doors in order to get a permit to do anything in the single market, that's a problem. And that's why we are heavily working together with the member states in our so-called Single Market Enforcement Task Force. And I can tell you, again, the garden picture. You know, at one of the last meetings, Kerstin Jorna, my Director General, she came with a boot, a rubber boot, because that's the image. It's the image of cleaning up, driving away, the remaining barriers. Not always very sexy, maybe, yeah, but getting it right for businesses in a bottom-up manner. And then maybe a last thing that I want to mention, because that's also part and parcel of our single market strategy, our new thinking on the occasion of the 30 years of the single market. It's digital. And here I'm not referring to digital and the level playing field that we've been creating through all the packages and the legislations. Of course, that's important, but using digital tools to make the single market work better. And there we can do more, and we are trying to go the next mile. Digital labeling has been mentioned. I'm also thinking about all kinds of one-stop shops that we are creating, for instance, for VAT. Very important to have a one-stop shop instead of knocking on various doors. One-stop shops also when it comes to information, advice. Think about a single digital gateway. And then also, again, thinking about administrative barriers, once only. The principle of once only, which is being rolled out. Making sure that if you have to deal with a reporting requirement, with a permitting requirement, and you have to do it over and over again in the member states, you can actually ask administrations to already share information. So digital can also be a lever, and we try to use that as a lever to make the single market work better. I stop it here.
No, please do, but please do continue, because there's one question I really want to ask you. And in my opinion, it's quite sexy. It is, Breton's come out, he's listed these, the 7-point kind of plan, and one of them is these national offices to address fragmentation. Will it be strong enough? Will it just be window dressing? What will these offices do to actually be able to scrub the regulations and remove, the fragmentation and take down the barriers? Is it possible?
I think it is absolutely possible. Okay, let me give you a little bit of the thinking behind it. Indeed, in the single market communication, we come forward with the idea of the single market offices.
But we have
Are we thinking?
We have these
Yeah.
offices already in the member states.
In some member states we have them, in others we don't. But what is it we want to see? This is not about creating new bureaucratic structures or telling the member states how they should be organized. But this is born out of a necessity to see full ownership in the member states, to have someone or an instance in the member states who has senior responsibility to monitor, but also to put the finger on where it hurts and get the change needed. Indeed, we have it. We have the Solvit centers, for instance. They are single market offices, can be part of that. But very often, and I know it because I worked on Solvit years ago, that's the nice thing about the Commission, you keep on seeing new things and doing new things. These Solvit centers, they're tucked away in some part of the national administration. They don't have the power to go for change. So through the single market offices, what we want to see is responsibility, power, authority to change things at the national level, because that's where very often the remaining barriers are.
This is very promising, and Solvit is a great program, but we need the don't cause it office, right?
Also.
You know, so let me just move it back towards you, James, but let me just stop with Andreas. Now,
But first of all, I have to contradict you. I mean, we have Solvit for how many years? Let's say 20.
20 years,
and the
yeah.
result is quite limited. So I cannot confess to you that I agree with you on that Solvit is a great issue. It has been a great idea that unfortunately hasn't brought the results that we wanted to have. Now, no criticism, but the facts are like that.
But your role is to be critical, right? So what should we be doing then? What can the Parliament do for the next mandate maybe to say, you know, enough is enough?
I mean, this is a question that I should answer to you again in the same manner. The Parliament can struggle to find a common position on future topics. But even if we do so, and I don't want to dwell again too much on it, as we did for the Digital Markets Act or for the law that we expected in 2014, we had to wait for 6 years for that to come up. So the Parliament is a very beautiful and a very important institution, but we need commissioners that stand up for positions. And if you go, for example, through this commission, there is plenty of commissioners that you haven't seen that much out there. They are staying, I don't know where, but I don't know where they are. So Breton, who has a responsibility not only for the single market, but also for the digital market, and also for Horizon, and also for defense, and also for research, which is too much for one person. He should have junior commissioners that deal with the daily stuff. But he has all the time a very strong position, and this is very good, because you can like it or you can dislike it, but he has a position and he's defending it. That we would need more. And we also need a stronger commitment with member states, and that's where we are elected. So the European election will be the start of that new parliament, and we will have to see how many Spaniards that have now voted down the current government will want full harmonization for the next election. We will have to see this. I think it's a very difficult struggle, because in Europe, member states matter. We cannot say it differently. So we have to convince them, maybe through that new form of Solvit, to understand better that it's in our common interest to have common rules. And I think, to come back on this, the globalized world where we want to have an impact as Europeans is the perfect example to say, listen, if we want to have an impact in global trade, only with one rule we can do it. It's already difficult compared to other partners, but if we have 27 rules, forget about it.
Andreas, before I move to James, I have one very good question from the audience here. Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous, thank you very much for this one. Put your names on there. What does the Parliament make of President van der Leyen's announcement to cut reporting burdens by 25%?
How much time do I have to answer?
You have a couple of minutes on that.
No, very short. I mean, we like this proposal a lot. Yeah. We are surprised that it comes after 4 years of her term, but at least. Now it's 1/4. Maybe if she did it last year, it would have been 1/3. So we are a bit disappointed that it comes only so late. But this is only about reporting burdens. Now, what is a reporting burden? It's a term which is very difficult to define. But anyway, this is very good. But what we need is more than this. We need a structural idea about where European Union wants to make growth a reality, and how, with our regulatory tools, we can make that easier. And reporting burdens, for sure, they are a burden, but this is not the solution to the problem. It's only a little part to make businesses freer from obligations that they have. And as James has said, I mean, to a certain extent, a company like Amazon has done probably for the digital single market more than national governments altogether, because they have just pushed and they have been running the risk to lose in court. Now, there are maybe other digital companies here that wanted to do the same and have been stopped by a court and have lost. And that's a bit the unfairness of the game, that those that invest billions just to overcome stupid national rules, they can win. And smaller ones, that wanted to do the same, they lose. And we should speak about these examples and tell to member states, that's unfair. These people should have the chance as well to grow, because the digital single market is a chance for everyone.
Andreas, thank you. Thank you very much. But let me go to you, James. Let's talk a little bit about these administrative burdens, right? I mean, what is your thinking as industry? What should we be addressing?
I'm delighted a couple of things that have already come up, which are either ongoing or on my mind, which is, Amaryllis mentioned VAT, something that another part of the Commission is already addressing. We know it's a major compliance burden, administrative burden that stops people selling from one country to another. Also, the digitization of tax systems to facilitate easy reporting, super important. Seems very niche, but it's a major overhead, a major cost, particularly for small businesses. Another one we mentioned earlier is digital labeling. But let me come to what I think could be an overarching theme for as we begin to turn to the next 5 years. One thing we've observed is a multiplication of pieces of national environmental legislation. So I'm not talking about the European level, the Green Deal as a package. I'm talking about very necessary measures introduced in member state A, B, or C to ensure appropriate levels of recycling or to ensure appropriate controls of chemicals or whatever it happens to be. But these things have been done nationally. And it is imperative, if we want to make two tracks of progress on sustainability issues and progress on keeping our single market relevant, attractive to investors, meaningful for consumers, that we do both. We don't have a choice between one or the other. We've got to do both together. So to my mind, we need to go beyond what Andreas has spent so many years working on, which is a digital single market. And next, we need a green single market. Because unless we can do both of those, and if you want to add another word, green and digital single market, that's fine. Unless you can do both of those at the same time, we will not be relevant for our children in terms of the sustainability challenge, be much less relevant than we can be economically, whether it's for those very small businesses or for those very big international businesses. We will not be relevant enough. We have to take on that twin challenge, and we need to ensure that we have a green single market, one that works effectively across borders.
Good. James, thank you very much. I want to come back to you, Amaryllis, because you're now preparing for the next commission, right? And you want to create a dialogue, right, to get information. You know, what do you need? What can this audience, provide to you? Here's your moment.
Well, keep on dreaming. Give us what is your dream for the single market in the next 10 years to come. And I've heard already a lot of good things. I mean, you mentioned the greening. Yeah. Yeah.
But you want to hear the pain points, right?
We want to hear the pain points, but that can be also a pain point. And you mentioned a pain point. I mean, we are actually trying to have a level playing field. At the same time, the economy, and that also means the legal system, is going through a huge transformation with new requirements, which are absolutely necessary if we want to green. So we need to have the greening and the single market at the same time. And also something that I haven't really heard is also building the business case for greening. That's also part and parcel of it. And the single market can also help there in building the business case, because for us, one of the key words when we did this single market communication, but also all the thinking about it, is the issue of the single market as the lever that makes sure that we have everything Europe needs in order to be successful in the green transition. It's about availability, building the business case, and then indeed the level playing field. To this audience, I would say keep on investing in the single market. I think it is a joint responsibility between the Commission and the co-legislators, obviously, very much also between the Commission and the Member States, very big role for the Member States, but also all of us. When you see a barrier, point at a barrier. When you have a good idea on overcoming, overcome. And think always single market first. And there I just want to say, okay, what have you seen? COVID-19, you remember the first days? The first reaction across Europe, like, let's protect ourselves, break the single market. It's the first reaction, it's a natural reaction. But we've seen it's a wrong reaction. The whole situation just aggravated. And it was only when we were able to rise beyond that and start building again the single market, keep the lanes open, build in solidarity mechanisms, that we came out jointly stronger of that. So I think, take the single market also as a joint responsibility. Think about what can I do where I stand for the single market.
Okay, okay, that's good. You know, there is going to be now all these templates. Can I just ask you in the audience, just very quickly, who is filling in the template on the 25% reduction burden? Raise your hands. Okay, we got one. The same amount of gardeners. In fact, less. We have 2 hands. I mean, here is an opportunity that the Commission have given us, right, to say, here's a template, fill it in, we will reduce your reporting burdens by 25%, and I saw 2 hands. So, you know, we can't be complaining if we don't fill that in. So every hand should be up, I hope, and every template should be filling my inbox in the next couple of weeks, I hope, and we'll be passing it to you, and love to hear what can be done. I think there's going to be a lot of reflection over the summer. Sorry if that's going to ruin your summer, but you know, this is a very important initiative. So, you know, we got to make sure that there is something tangible, and we'll see what that is. I don't know if there's something you could say about it now. No, keep your powder dry.
Work is ongoing.
Work is ongoing.
And indeed, we need to have the feedback, and we need to very much think also out of the box and how to get there. Yeah.
Okay.
What to scrap, what to streamline, what to do better, use digital tools, whatever. It's a big chantier, and voila.
And so we have a couple more minutes. Yeah, a couple more minutes. Okay. So I'd like to give the last words to my other 2 panelists. Maybe I can start with you, Andres. Do you want the last word? Maybe we can go with James first.
What should I say? I think the example with the gardener is excellent, because also amaryllis is a very nice flower. and therefore, I can only wish that she will give the Commission the right scissors to cut what has to be changed, and also to have some good ideas for the next term, because we see it already in digital legislation that there were 2 important files at the beginning, but then we came up with the next and the next and the next, and that doesn't work. We have to try to have a strategy which is based on a few pillars that businesses and people know what it's all about. If we enlarge it endlessly, we will lose concentration and focus. And we would also need from your side ideas what the main pillars of digital policy, of reducing not only reporting burdens but also other red tape, what that can be for the next term. Because it is one thing to hear about complaints, but it's another thing to develop a strategy that you can focus on 2 or 3 elements. And you know how it is. Everyone in the Parliament and in the Commission, every DG wants to have a toy to kick it down the road for the whole term. And we have to limit that so that we can really focus on the big issues. If you have good ideas there, you will be welcome, and you can also present them already before the next election.
That's fantastic. I'm looking at my members here. Do you have good ideas for him? Raise your hand. Yes? We'll be talking to you. Yes, we'll definitely be providing you and taking you up on that challenge, you bet. So, James.
I was tempted to pursue my gardening analogy further because I'm successful, and by comparing circular economy and compost, which is maybe the original circular economy because it's reused and very effective for those who appreciate the analogy. But I think you know, I'm going to reinforce and underline the point about a green single market. We need it to be easy for people to do, the businesses I'm talking about, to do the right thing for the long term. For example, in terms of recycling. For example, to push up recycling rates by making it easy to sell across border, register across border, be doing the right thing, and not having people not comply because they don't understand the rules. The final thing I'll say is where we do have new rules, where it makes sense, we do of course need the rules to be meaningful, not just rules for rules' sake. We need them to be workable, and we need them to be enforced in a single market fashion, not only conceived in a single market fashion, but enforced in a single market fashion. I looked up the other day how many pieces of legislation have been published under President von der Leyen's mandate. I don't know if you know, Amaryllis. Put you on the spot. I think it was 320 already.
Could be.
320, I think, already proposed. So there's a lot of legislation that you've had to deal with. So clearly when you add up what happened under President Juncker, President von der Leyen, and before, it's a lot of legislation. Companies need to adapt, small businesses need to adapt, countries need to adapt. So we need to make sure that when we proceed with new legislation, we do it meaningfully, that it has a purpose, that it is single market compatible, and that it is enforced in a single market fashion.
Excellent, James. Thank you. And this morning we were telling our members that we are dealing with 87 legislative files at Digital Europe. It would be easily 300 if we didn't have this prioritization initiative to make sure that our staff can actually live and breathe. So yes, we do want to address these things. And I think the message is very clear from our panel, right? We have a commission that's listening. It wants to do things. We got to help them. We got to empower them. We got to give them the information they're looking for. If we sit on our hands, then we can't be surprised if nothing happens. So we will empower you. That's a promise. And to the Parliament, right? We want to make sure that you can also put the pressure on the Commission, and more importantly, the member states. Are there member states people here in the audience representing any permanent representation? One in the back, okay. So let's talk to her, and let's make sure that the member states are listening. And then, of course, James, right? We have to make sure that that we talk in the association and get the SMEs engaged, right, in our national trade associations to voice up as well. So I thank everybody for listening, and I thank my very honored panelists for being here today. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next panel.
Okay. Thank you.